The look on Queen Letizia's face lasted maybe 2 seconds, but honestly, I think it revealed more than an entire year of royal headlines. Because right after Leonor finished speaking at that public event this week, the cameras caught Letizia doing something we almost never see from her anymore. She looked worried. Not royal worried. Not formal event stress, worried. Personal worried. And if you've followed Spain's royal family long enough, you already know how unusual that is. Letizia is probably one of the most controlled public figures in Europe right now. Every movement calculated, every expression measured, every appearance polished almost to perfection. That's why this moment exploded online so fast. Because for one tiny second, the mask slipped. And honestly, I think people immediately sensed it. Now obviously, nobody inside the palace is going to confirm some dramatic emotional crisis. That's not how modern monarchies operate anymore. Everything stays carefully managed, carefully softened, carefully redirected. But here's my problem with most royal coverage today. It focuses too much on official statements, and not enough on human behavior. Because human behavior tells the real story. And lately, Letizia's behavior has changed. Subtle changes, small things, the kind of details casual viewers miss completely. Longer pauses near Leonor, more protective body language, that constant, watching, expression she's had recently whenever her daughter speaks publicly. Honestly, it doesn't feel like simple royal pride anymore. It feels like concern. And I think the reason this matters so much right now is because Leonor is no longer just a protected daughter inside the palace walls. She's becoming her own public figure. Her own symbol, her own emotional narrative. That transition changes family dynamics completely. Especially inside royalty. While Prince William and Kate Middleton still maintain that polished united front image in Britain, Spain's royal family feels emotionally different lately. Less distant, more visibly pressured, almost like the institution itself is struggling to keep pace with how fast Leonor's public identity is evolving. And honestly, I think Letizia sees the risks more clearly than anyone else around her. If you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. Now let me say something controversial immediately. I don't think Letizia regrets becoming queen. I think she regrets understanding the cost too late. That's different, because when people talk about Letizia, they usually frame her as this ultra-disciplined perfectionist who adapted flawlessly into royal life. Former journalist becomes queen, reinvents the monarchy, protects the crown, raises the future queen carefully. And yes, a lot of that is true. But honestly, I think people underestimate how emotionally isolating that transformation probably was for her personally. Remember, Letizia didn't grow up royal. She entered the institution from the outside. That means she understands normal life in ways many royals never fully can. She knows what freedom feels like. Privacy, mistakes without global headlines, emotional decisions without institutional consequences. And that's why I think watching Leonor grow up inside this machine affects her differently. Because she knows exactly what her daughter is losing. That realization probably hits harder with age too. Especially now, because Leonor's transition into full royal responsibility suddenly feels real. Military training, international appearances, viral speeches, constant public analysis, relationship rumors, pressure from every direction. And honestly, I think Letizia may be having the exact emotional reaction many mothers would have in that situation. Did I prepare her for this, or sacrifice her to it? That's the uncomfortable question underneath all this. And yes, I know palace supporters will say Leonor was born for duty, born for leadership, born for the crown. Sure, but she was also born human. That matters. Now here's where my hot take gets even stronger. I think Letizia's biggest fear right now isn't political failure. It's emotional damage. Because history has already shown what happens when royal institutions underestimate emotional pressure. We've seen it in Britain. We've seen it globally. The internet age makes royal life psychologically brutal in ways older generations never experienced. Every awkward moment becomes content. Every emotional expression becomes debate. Every rumor becomes identity. And Leonor belongs to the first truly fully digital royal generation. That changes everything. Honestly, I sometimes think older royal institutions still don't fully understand how exhausting permanent visibility actually is for young people. Imagine discovering your identity while millions of strangers build narratives about you daily. That's not normal human development. And I think Letizia knows that. You can see it in the way she watches Leonor now during public appearances. Not just as queen, but as a mother trying to calculate emotional impact in real time. That's what shocked me most recently. Not the speeches, not the headlines, the protectiveness. Now personally, I think there was one specific moment where reality hit Letizia harder than expected. It wasn't during a scandal. It wasn't during political criticism. It was when Leonor stopped looking like a child publicly. That changes parents emotionally in every family, but inside royalty, it becomes even heavier because adulthood means entering the institution permanently. No turning back. And honestly, I think that's where regret quietly begins for many royal parents. Not because they dislike the monarchy, but because they finally understand the emotional price attached to it. That's why the title of this story matters. The day Letizia regretted everything, doesn't mean she regretted loving Spain or supporting the crown. I think she regretted realizing too late that no amount of preparation can fully protect your child from public life. That's heartbreaking in a very human way. And honestly, I think viewers connected to that emotional possibility instantly because it feels universal. You don't need to be royal to understand parental fear. Every parent eventually reaches the moment where their child steps into the world beyond their protection. The difference is Leonor steps into global observation. Now let's talk about timing because this part fascinates me. Why are audiences suddenly analyzing Letizia emotionally now more than ever? Simple. Because Leonor herself has become emotionally readable lately. That changed the energy of the entire royal family dynamic. For years, the palace carefully presented Leonor as composed, disciplined, historically prepared. But recently, more humanity slips through. Small hesitations, emotional speeches, softer interactions, moments that feel less rehearsed. And the second the public emotionally connected to Leonor, they started reanalyzing Letizia too. That's how narrative ecosystems work online now. People no longer watch royal families as institutions alone. They watch them as emotional systems. Who protects who seems tense, who looks exhausted, who appears worried. And honestly, I think Letizia's expressions lately have fueled more conversation than official palace messaging itself. That's modern media in 2026. One authentic facial expression can overpower an entire PR strategy. Creators like Mr. Beast already understand this perfectly. Emotional authenticity drives engagement harder than polished perfection ever will. Monarchies are learning the same lesson slowly. And ironically, Letizia may be one of the few royals intelligent enough to recognize that shift fully. Remember, she comes from journalism. She understands optics deeply. She understands narrative framing. She understands how quickly emotional moments become symbolic online. Which makes this even more interesting. Because if Letizia truly knows how media psychology works, then maybe her visible concern recently wasn't accidental at all. Maybe she simply couldn't hide it anymore. That's possible too. And honestly, that possibility makes this story feel even more human. Because no amount of royal training can completely suppress maternal instinct forever. Not when your daughter is becoming one of the most watched young women in Europe. Not when every mistake could become global. Not when every emotional moment becomes viral content. Not when the institution begins needing her more than ever. That's enormous pressure for somebody Leonor's age. And I think Letizia feels that weight constantly now. Now personally, the moment that stayed with me wasn't even the public appearance everyone keeps discussing. It was afterward, the way Letizia kept glancing toward Leonor while cameras were pulling away. Almost like she wanted to say something but couldn't in public. That tiny detail hit me harder than any headline. Because suddenly this wasn't just about queens, heirs, institutions, or monarchy. It was about a mother realizing her daughter officially belongs to history now, not just to her. And honestly, I think that's the day everything probably changed emotionally for Letizia. Not because the crown failed her, but because she finally understood that protecting Leonor completely was never going to be possible. And for a mother, that realization probably feels a little like regret.